only way to innovate and grow is to ensure that we're challenged and that diverse voices are included in the conversation. So there was push-pull, and sometimes it was emotional because you might not see eye to eye on the direction of the organization. But everyone came in with respect as well. And respected everyone's opinions. And we were able to navigate and I think come out with a phenomenal strategic plan.
Hello and welcome to Conversations for a Feminist Future. My name is Jenny J and I am the Communications and Marketing Manager here at Fora Network for Change. And today we are going to be talking about where we were, where we are, and where we're going as it relates to and through the lens of Fora's new strategic plan. So today I'm joined with Emma Asiedu-Akrofi, our wonderful Chief Executive Officer, and Beth Dewitt, the Chair of our board. Welcome both of you. How are we doing today?
Thanks.
Great. Thank you.
Amazing. Well, I'm excited to jump into this because we have our 2025 to 2029 strategic plan that is newly out. And this has been a conversation long in the happening. So to start off, firstly, for those that don't know or haven't really been familiar with what a strategic plan is, in the lens of the nonprofit sector and in this world, what is a strategic plan? Emma, Beth?
First, I would just like to say, congratulations.
Congratulations.
Because everyone on the team was so heavily involved in our strategic plan. I think it was 10 months in the making. So a lot of time and effort and energy and thought and care and consideration went into it, which I think is really kind of like at the heartbeat or lifeblood of any not-for-profit, is just what every individual brings to the table, and especially the strategic plan. So I just wanted to start with that and just to thank everyone for all that went into it. Did you want to say anything about the strategic plan? And I can
Sure. So your question is really, what is a strategic plan?
Yeah.
So I can, from the perspective of Fora and really any organization, I think the strategic plan is an opportunity for us to take a step back and to reassess where we are right now. So where are we as an organization in terms of our mission, our vision, our values, our mandate, our impact, our programming, our operations, all the things, right? So it's a time for pause and reflection to really assess where we are and how we've gotten there. And then it's an opportunity for us to think about, now where do we want to go? Did we meet those metrics? Did we meet those deliverables? If not, how can we further that or pivot if we realize we're not on the right path? So, and then within that, so it's development of goals, pillars, the journey within that, and the targets that you want to achieve between the start of the strategic plan and the end date.
Were there any goals that either of you had, like hoping to come out of this new strategic plan? What were some of the goals that you wanted to see on the other side of it?
Yeah, I think, from a board perspective, some of the goals that we thought about were what's going to set this chapter apart from the previous chapter? What is aspirational for us? What can our North Star be? And how is that the same or different? And how do we build upon what we've done in the previous 5 years that got us to where we were? So goals for us were to really answer questions about our identity, about where we belong in the sector, where we want to see ourselves be, and what makes that new, different, exciting, and compelling. And really from a board perspective as well, we have to think about risk, and risk looks at not just brand reputation, but also financial, and good governance. And so we wanted to really answer questions around how do we sustain our future going forward, and how do those big aspirational goals with what is truly possible come together so that we can really manage that going forward.
I feel like my goals were personal and from an organizational perspective because I came into this role a year and a half ago. So I was inheriting a lot of the vision, the mission that had been created long before I came. So I was responsible for carrying that into completion. but I also wanted to bring in my perspective and the perspective of the new employees and new stakeholders who also were asking these big, lofty questions about who are we now? Like the organization has changed so much. Our name has changed. The individuals we serve have changed. So how do we answer these questions? And so it was a lot of pressure, really. It was like I didn't have the language or initially I didn't have the language or the vision, really, and it takes time to get there. So it was not only a challenge, but it's also a blessing in a sense to really be able to have this time to reflect and then to build off of that.
So you actually bring up a great point and something I wanted to talk about. Strategy can feel like such a technical thing, like strategic thinking, but it's also quite an emotional one, especially for folks who might be feeding into the conversation, who have known the organization for such a long time, who, we have board members that were once actually a part of the program and have seen like an organization evolve, and you have different people coming in at different levels who are deeply emotionally tied to how an organization moves forward. So in that process, knowing that is something that also is a part of strategic planning, what were some of the values that were important to bring into those conversations over the 10-month period in which those conversations were happening?
It was really important to us as a strategic planning committee, which was made up both of members of the board and then at the working group level was members that were representative of our program participants and our broader stakeholders, funders, broader community. And so really when we did that very intentionally, and we did it because we felt that in order to be representative of those that we want to have as members of our community, we had to hear all those voices. And so really, I don't know, maybe 4, 5, 6 months of the strategic plan was almost like a listening tour. We were engaging to hear what people really valued, what they wanted more of, what they wanted less of, what mattered to them. And then you're right, there's a piece of that, of work that then has to follow on that says, okay, when we think about who we are as an organization and defining those values, what are we going to pull in from what we heard that is going to be supporting overall what our mission is and what our North Star is going to be? And so we had to really take those voices and listen and not discount any of them. And I think that was kind of critical to our process of trying to get at values and trying to get at who we want to be and why.
Yeah, I'm really piggybacking off of what Beth has said. Our values were really around inclusivity. How do we have all these voices included in conversation? So that includes board, senior management, staff, alumni, participants. We really wanted to ensure that we didn't miss any of the stakeholders and that they were heard and that their opinions were valued. So that was first and foremost, was the most important thing. And also diversity of thought, right? The only way to innovate and grow is to ensure that we're challenged and that diverse voices are included in the conversation. So there was push-pull, and sometimes it was emotional because you might not see eye to eye on the direction of the organization. But everyone came in with respect as well and respected everyone's opinions. And we were able to navigate and I think come out with a phenomenal strategic plan.
Yeah, I was going to add, one of the things that we did at the very start was ask ourselves, what questions do we need to answer? And that became almost like the guideline or the rules of engagement. And when we could share those with those that we were share those questions with the individuals that we were engaging, be it through survey or focus groups or one-to-one conversations, it also gave them a sense of the key things we were looking to answer. And I think that helped people bring balanced perspective and not be only kind of looking at this from the lens of their singular, unique experience with Fora, but they were able to kind of understand all that we were trying to balance. So I think that also helped us really get a couple key questions answered.
Yeah. And one last thing to that is I think it was great where you saw the diversity of thought, but you also saw the commonalities, right? There's some shared feedback that we received, we're like, aha, we need to address this because we've heard it in our focus groups, we've heard it in our surveys, we've heard it in our working group. This is something that our community wants. Yeah.
So in synthesizing all of the information, and I say this with a bit of a smile on my face as someone who also witnessed what it was like to synthesize a lot of information, and now being able to actually have it ready and out there and begin the processes of implementation. I'd love to actually talk about like what is the strategic plan and like what were those outcomes, especially like the ones that are most exciting for the both of you. So Emma, when you think of like the strategic plan that has now been finalized, there's 5 main pillars. You have like volunteer and member strategy. You have like keeping the organization financially sustainable. There is the streamed programming,
Consolidated program model.
Can you talk me through the 5 pillars that we have in the
Sure.
strat plan?
I'm ecstatic to talk you through the 5 pillars. So the first one, consolidated program model. And what that really means is that there'll be some commonalities between the programs. And there's some foundational courses that no matter what, if you're doing Rise on Boards or our Global Summit program, we want to take you along this journey. And it'll be very, not unique. It'll be a shared experience. In addition to that, there'll be specific workshops and programs that you take dependent on the stream you're in. But ultimately, we want everyone to be able to go through this journey and have that shared experience and then have a tailored experience depending on the program that you're in.
Incredible. It sounds like the ideal goal that comes out of that is you then are really spending time with the network that you build coming out of those programs because you've gone through it collectively.
Exactly.
Can I add something? So it actually wasn't even at the outset. It took us a little while to land on this, but I think one day it was on a call that we were having with a couple other people, and it just sort of dawned on us that we pivoted from Girls 20 to a name called Fora, Network for Change. But we never really answered or explained what was behind that name. And so as we were talking about it, we realized that so much of the information we were getting back from the stakeholders we were talking to was about either they want more of the experience over a longer period of time with more connection points to their network or the cohort of community that they were making through the programs. They didn't want to just be on a singular path with us. They wanted to be able to explore more of what we offered. And then our alumni were craving more touch points once they kind of graduated out of our programs. And all of a sudden we realized that like that was what Fora was. That Fora is about network. And we hadn't really capitalized on our name, and that all of the feedback we were getting was actually directing us to the fact that maybe our next set of activities under our strategic plan was to actually really live as a networked community. And so what that looked like was shaping curriculum that wasn't about entering and exiting only through one program, but rather entering at any number of different points and being able to move through a few different streams of programming, being able to build a network, therefore, that wasn't just singular and focused, but much more multi-layered in terms of the people you were engaging with. And that did extend beyond a time box of what our programs had previously been. And that then opened us up for an opportunity to say our membership could be on the table. Different experience of what it means to be a participant is on the table. Different experience of what being an alumni is on the table. Like all of that, it just became this like really creative, fruitful place to start from. So it's a long-winded answer perhaps, but it's to say that we just sort of realized, oh, we need to do something more with this idea of a Fora.
We need to be a network.
We needed to be a network, truly be a network.
Thank you so much for sharing that because, I think how that happened and the journey to getting there was actually so key, because it's to what you were saying, right? It's being able to actually take a step back and say, like, who are we? And, you know, Fora rebranded in the middle of a lot of different things. And so being able to then like pull back and say, actually, we rebranded, and like, we didn't get time to really sit with who we've now said we are. So what does it look like to do that? I know there's 4 other pillars. That's just one part of it. Every other pillar also works towards that same goal. Talk me through that, Emma.
For sure. So the second pillar, and I'm not doing it in any particular order, is really a renewed alumni engagement strategy. And what that is I've had the opportunity to chat with alumni and just really engage with them and to hear their experiences. And they were asking for more. They didn't want it to just stop through the program, and they were seeking engagement opportunities to really connect and support and be a community or a network, if you will. And so we realized we really needed to focus and hone in on that. We have this phenomenal, and I'm emphasizing phenomenal network of young people that have come through both Global Summit, any other global opportunity we've had, Rise on Boards, Leadership Forum. And so we're like, it was almost a no-brainer in a sense, where we really needed to pour into them. And so what that looks like is really more opportunities for engagement, for workshops, for programming. For example, our Global Impact Fund, which is providing micro-granting for alum who have a social impact initiative, is one example of how we want to renew our alumni engagement with them. And we're thinking big. We're like, it's innovative. So can this be a chapter-based opportunity where we have governance models in different countries and they're really overseeing what the curriculum or the programming will look like for their region? So there's a lot of things that we can play with in terms of our renewed alumni engagement strategy, but we knew it was necessary to have it in there.
Amazing. Pillar number 3.
Pillar number 3 is established member and volunteer network. Again, going back to Beth's point about Fora, we're a network. Our coaches, our mentors, our volunteers, our donors are all a part of that network too. And we want them to feel valued. We want them to feel engaged. We want to feel it's reciprocal, right? Like they're pouring into us and we also have to pour into them as equally. So we want to create opportunities for them to be further engaged in the work that we're doing. Again, that word phenomenal, we not only have phenomenal participants and alumni, but we have a phenomenal volunteer and member database or network, if you will. So it's really important that we find ways to engage them in the work further.
What I really love about all of that as well, you know, we were talking about like 3 out of 5 pillars already are so rooted in like that community and that it being a network. And I think like when from like the highest level, you have that intentionality, it allows that to then trickle into the programming, into what staff knows priorities are, into how like events can be curated, because you actually have that in documentation, right? You know, there's a lot to be said about how important. And I actually can't believe I'm saying this, because I like am not a like huge like in like, you know, like HRE documentation, like all of that. It sounds so boring to me.
Jenny,
sometimes.
you know I love a process, right?
You love a process, and honestly, if it's baked into the process, then it's there. You know, if it's prioritized at the highest level, like as a chair of the board and as a CEO, if these are the things that are being prioritized, it means everyone else that is a part of the community, that is a part of the staff, that like all of the different people engaged in the network know and understand that this is actually extremely important, and it gets to be a priority across the organization, which is something that's really exciting, I think, about the new strategic plan.
Yeah, I love it. Synergies, right?
Yeah. I know there's like 2 more pillars if you want to chat through them.
Sure. So, and then as a Canadian charity that operates nationally and globally, we recognize it's so important to have partners. And so national and global partnerships, it's almost a no-brainer, right? So that we need to really establish partnerships. And it's not only programmatically, but operationally. Is there a way that we can come together to really advance this work? Is it consortiums? Is it collaborations? What does that look like? We have some targets that we want to hit, but we know that we really need to hone in and focus on our partnerships. So it's all about collective movement. We can't do this work alone. We need partners. We need collaborators. We need those who are invested in the work to advance the work of gender equity and youth leadership.
And pillar number 5.
Dun, 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 dun. Financial sustainability.
We love it. Because without it,
we can't do the work. That's pretty much, we need financial sustainability. It needs unrestricted funding is very important for an organization like Fora. We need to be nimble. We need to be innovative. And so we need the flexibility and the trust from the funders to be able to do that work. And then as well as we want to continue to engage foundations and government who have been so supportive of our work to this point. And so how can we further engage them? And then as well, in terms of individual donors and anyone who's willing to pour into Fora because they see the value of the work that we're doing and our mission.
5 years is a long time in the nonprofit world, especially when we're talking about, financial sustainability and all of that. When 2030 rolls around, what are some stories you're excited to have heard, that's been inspired by this new strategic plan?
I first just had a bit of a heart palpitation thinking about what my age is going to be in 5 years from now, about 2030. Right. Okay. I think there's sort of this full circle opportunity with Fora now, right? Mm-hmm. Where we've already started to see it, like you mentioned, we have past participants who sit on our board, right? Mm-hmm. So I think it's continuing to be the stories that show that through the community that was built, the programming that was provided, the training, the platform, the opportunities, the exposure, we're seeing not only our participants kind of feeding into the success of one another, mm-hmm. feeding into the success of Fora, but also we're starting to see that those individuals are really demonstrating what it means to be a young feminist change maker in their communities mm-hmm. and on a global stage. And that's going to be less of something that's hard to find and something that is easier to find would be one goal or story that I hope we can share and tell. And I think, we have a really big goal of actually saying that Fora's community or network as a whole is going to be such a force of change mm-hmm. that within 5 years, people are actually going to see that we are becoming a space of power too. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And how cool will that be? And that our participants will be the stories of that.
Yeah, goosebumps. I love that. Yeah, it's really truly that we're that space of power. I totally echo that. In terms of the participants and the alumni that will come through this program, the hope and the vision is that as they climb, they're also lifting others, right? Mm-hmm. So it becomes cyclical in terms mm-hmm. of as they progress in their journey, be it in career, in leadership, in advocacy, they're able to support not only those within their generation, but the next generation to have further opportunities to do the work that they want to do.
I do sit on another board as well, and when I joined that board a couple of years ago, I was speaking to someone who is a fellow board director mm-hmm. and found out that she was like cohort 5 of Rise on Boards, which was Girls on Boards back then. And I was like, wow, mm-hmm. how cool is that I didn't even have an mm-hmm. association with either organization. And then both kind of came into perspective for me around the same time. Mm-hmm. And then I actually saw someone who had been a young director and now actually held a more permanent role. It wasn't just a 1 year. It converted mm-hmm. into tenure on the board and then got to find out about her whole career from there. So it's very cool to see mm-hmm. that, and I hope to be able to see more of it.
Yeah, Fora's everywhere. We're everywhere.
Emma, this question is for you.
Sure.
So strategic planning and strategic thinking is often seen as like a top-down approach, but it does actually require shared leadership and distributed leadership across an organization. How do you see that being implemented, and what are your goals for what that looks like and how that shows up as it begins to get implemented in what the team is doing?
Yeah. we're deconstructing it. I hope we're blowing it out of the water the way this top-down approach, I'm trying at least, in the sense where I am not the subject matter expert on everything. Our board are not the subject matter expert on everything. Our staff, our participants, they have the answers. Extremely talented individuals, including yourself, Jenny, who bring insight that needs to be recognized and also and really considered, not just pacified and say, yeah. Like, how do we really take your insight, your expertise, and your knowledge and utilize it for our strategy? And so I don't think there's any other way to go about it, really. We need the inclusive thought. We need your voices in the conversation, and we need to be intentional about it.
And then, Beth, for you, when it comes to like that shared responsibility between the board and the team, what does that look like in terms of sharing some of that leadership and responsibility when it comes to implementation of the strategic plan?
One of the things that I really value is when the team actually comes to the board meetings and presents what their action plans are, how they're going about doing their work. And we actually end up having a conversation around what works, what doesn't work. And then it becomes the board gets to see and hear something that they otherwise wouldn't get to see and hear if we didn't actually have the opportunity to speak with those who are implementing and doing the work. And then I think, from a board perspective, the board loves the opportunity to actually be able to share in that thinking and offer insights based on their own experience. So I just like to see a little bit more of that collaboration, or I look forward to that ongoing collaboration between the board and the team in terms of what does it actually now mean to get this work done? And us being able to hear from you is one of the key ways that we understand just what it's going to take.
Amazing. Speaking to that and speaking to something that we also talk about a lot in governance structures, at Fora, we talk a lot about like sharing power at the board level and what it means to share that power. What does sharing power look like from where you're sat?
At the board level? Yeah. That's a really good question. I mean, in part, it's around seeing the board as a place where we need to have multiple voices and experiences. So I think in the past, boards have been seen as places where you're an older person who's at the end of their career, now giving back to their community, often white, often male, right? And I think we want our board to be different. And so we want to make sure that we have those who are program participants, be it opportunities to be on the board or find structures that we can put in place that allow us to have advisory groups so that board is actually hearing from those that are living our programs. I don't think that it makes sense for us to have, like this power over structure at all. And instead, our board is made stronger and smarter and more inquisitive by having voices at the table that think differently, that have experienced differently. So that's some of the things that I think we're working towards the board or for the board. And I think as well, we're also looking at a membership structure in terms of, when we have our annual general meetings, who's actually in attendance at those. In the past, it's basically been the board. And we're looking at creative ways of, again, getting more people involved from our network and our community and looking at what membership means in terms of the voices that are represented in terms of decisions, voting, and board structure.
I love that.
Can I add?
Yeah.
So I want to take the lens of Chief Executive Officer, who is the intermediary between the board and the staff. And so what would it look like? What does it look like to share power between staff and board? And the hope and the direction we are heading in, thanks to Beth and some of the other board members, is really, again, valuing the insight. The staff are the day-to-day implementers, visionaries of Fora. And so we need to respect and value their opinions. And when they say we can't or we can, it's either how can the board facilitate them to do it or respect that it can't be done at that moment. But we really, their voices really need to be heard and strongly considered in any decision making. I like to think of the board as they are responsible for the brand, the risk management, the governance, and then the team are really truly, they hold the portfolio for the day-to-day operations. And so I think clearly having that definition of like who sits where, but how can you work together in those spaces is really important.
Some of the other things that I think are important that we'd like to look at is, you know, like, why can't we do a joint offsite? You know, why can't we talk about key decisions that are being made and how the board can support? You know, so I think that there's ways in sort of breaking down that hierarchy as well that we need to look at.
Love that. So just as we close out this conversation, I'd love to start with you, Emma, because I know you love processes and implementation. What are you most excited about what gets to be implemented first, or about the next part of the strategic plan process?
You know, funny enough, as much as I love process and implementation, the strategic plan took 10 months. And now to think now the implementation plan, like we've done this part and now it's really that implementation. So I'm excited, but it's a lofty initiative that will, again, pull in many stakeholders to make sure that we can hit these targets. So I'm just excited to actualize some of this stuff really and to start to hit our goals. And I'm really excited to see the alumni engaged more. I'm very, very excited with that. I'm very excited for this consolidated program model where we'll be able to truly articulate, like, this is what Fora is doing and these are the outcomes based on this program model that we have. So there's so many parts to it. It's going to be a labor of love for many of us, but I know that we will hit our targets in 5 years.
Amazing. Yeah. Beth, what are you most excited for?
Scale. I think Fora has the potential to touch many more people, and that our programs need to be scaled and that they need to be localized at the same time. So I'm really excited to see how it is that we're going to be able to invite many more people in, and the way in which that whole local chapter idea, local programming initiative, and that connection between the global and the local and like the center that is sort of helping coordinate it all. I'm excited to see that shift. I think it's going to make a big difference, and it's going to mean that we can hopefully stop asking certain questions such as, are there programs that we have to stop because we just can't afford to keep doing it? But we've kind of been able to dismantle the structure that we were operating in and completely redesign it. And as a result, it just allows us to grow in a way we weren't able to before. Yeah.
Amazing. Thank you so much for this wonderful conversation. I know our whole community is going to be so excited to see it and then to watch the unfolding of the strategic plan. And thank you so much for listening. For those that want to check out our new strat plan, you can do so at foranetwork.org. And for those who are curious about learning more, don't hesitate to reach out. You can reach out to Emma. You can reach out to info@foranetwork.org. And we'll see you in another episode.